Was ist los? It's your German boy here with a very special video. Now, if you guys have heard over on DeviantArt, I finally reached 666 watchers, and I honestly just want to thank you all for supporting me this far. It's been a long ride so far, and I promise I'll have more awesome stuff coming in the future. But I figured to commemorate this special event, I would do a little Q&A event. Now, the reception thereof was a little lukewarm, how can I say? I didn't get as many questions as I thought I was going to, but I'm going to answer them all in this video. So, you know, that's something you can expect. Alright, so how I'm gonna do this is quite simple. I'm just gonna flash the comment on the screen here, and I'll give my response to it. And let's start at the oldest first. Alright, this one comes to me from KG Suva. If you are not interested in any of the stuff you currently are, cars, metal music, guns, anime, androids, etc., what do you think you would be into instead? Yeah, honestly, that's a really hard call to make, because a lot of the stuff I'm into nowadays was kind of set in stone by the time I was about 5 or 6. So if I think back to that time, it is entirely possible if I had, you know, different toys growing up or different things going on, I could have diverged down a different path I was into back then. Cause back when I was like 5 or 6, you know, cars weren't everything I was into, you know, like I also had this huge obsession with dinosaurs back then. I know, just like every kid does. But not just like in the typical way that kids do with like that rah rah kind of shice, you know, like I wanted to learn more about these reptiles that roamed the earth so long ago, so I ended up picking up a lot of trivia about them that in the years since I've either forgotten or has become invalidated by recent discoveries. So it is entirely possible that, you know, if I played with more dinosaurs when I was a kid, I might have had more of an interest in paleontology going into later years. An interest which I feel has kind of started coming back with YouTube channels such as Your Dinosaurs Are Wrong and PBS Eons I've been getting into lately, and kind of reinvigorating this interest I had when I was a kid. And God, I guess another thing I could say was like I was into like space and the planets back then. I know I probably sound cliche as shice about this, but I knew so much shit back then that even nowadays my cousins know me as the little spaceman. It's like, that's kind of funny in a way, and something I feel like I would have gotten into more if life had turned out a little differently. Now, one thing I can feel safe in assuming I probably wouldn't have gotten into back then was like comic books, you know, Marvel, DC, superheroes, that kind of shit. Because honestly, that was something that I never really latched onto when I was a kid, so even now I don't think that would have taken off. Alright, so the next question comes to me from, I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name, but RD Sayafryer 2000. Have you known a humble fact that the number of the beast was a seal born out of the Emperor Nero from the Roman Empire? Actually, no. I'll have to look into that later on, but my understanding was that the number 666 was explicitly mentioned in the first books of the New Testament, which were written a little bit before Nero was emperor, if I'm not mistaken. And my other knowledge just kind of comes from how black metal culture has sort of idolized this number in later years, which is something else altogether, I guess. Just to preface, I'm not actually a Satanist, but I know that stereotype's thrown around all the time in the metal community, and it's... I don't know what the fuck to tell you, honestly. But it is some things that I'll definitely have to check in further detail in a later time, and I'll update you later. Alright, so the next one comes to me from Nemesis RR, and he asks, which NFL teams do you support? Believe it or not, there's actually 3. I follow the Arizona Cardinals because they're my de facto home team living in the state of Arizona, as some of you probably know by now. The Kansas City Chiefs because, not gonna lie, I didn't really pay much attention to them until Mahomes got on the team. And he's a good kid with a lot of spunk and a lot of potential. But given these last couple seasons and all the L's he's taken, I feel like he's kind of been sitting on his laurels lately and has room to grow, you know? I hope he takes these losses as learning experiences to become a better player in the future. And I also follow the Eagles a good bit too because, you know, my American grandparents came from Philly and they love the Eagles, so I kind of just rubbed off on that. And ever since I've been paying attention, you know, they got this Jalen Hurts guy in there too, and he's also got a lot of potential, and I'd like to see where he's going. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I'll move on to the next one. Now, this next one's a pretty good one. It comes from Garandalak. What is your favorite car from your least favorite car brand /S? And conversely, what's your most hated car from your favorite brand /S? I'm gonna start with my most hated cars from my favorite brands, starting with Cadillac. I'd have to go with the Lyric, honestly. It's the antithesis of everything a Cadillac should be. It's electric, it's a crossover, and it's physically painful to look at. There's no redeeming quality about the Lyric that I've seen yet, other than the fact that it ditches Cadillac's new millennium trend of alphanumeric fucking badge names. The same trend that, if you'll remember, killed off the DeVille in favor of DTS and that shit. So, it's I guess it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I like that Cadillac is starting to distance themselves from alphanumeric naming, but on something like that, my god, I thought the Cimarron was the worst thing Cadillac has ever done. And honestly, I thought about saying the XT4, you know, that Eclipse cross-looking head-ass motherfucker, but I think the Lyric actually surpassed that as Cadillac's absolute nadir in recent years. Now, for Chevy, I'm going with the Blazer 2019, obviously, because it's such a disservice to the K5 and the S10, especially in recent years now that the off-road segment started to kind of come back a little bit with the likes of the new Bronco coming out and all that. I feel like GM missed a real opportunity with the Blazer there and just should have made something more like a Wrangler. That would have satisfied the fans. Thirdly, I'm gonna go with something from Mercedes-Benz. Now, I have two things for this one actually, because the first one, I don't know if it counts, but I'm going with the Smart for 2. It's made by Mercedes-Benz, and honestly, my god, that thing isn't even a car. It's a fucking overpriced golf cart masquerading as a car. The only things that's really worth mentioning are the Dion tube suspension, and it's the only non-JDM car that is not made by a Japanese manufacturer that's actually a K car. Other than that, for $20,000, you've got so many better options out there. Like, why would you blow 20 grand on a car that literally has less storage space than a fucking Dodge Viper? Like, that makes no sense to me, you know? Now, if I want to go for something from Mercedes proper, it's kind of a toss-up between the GLC Coupe and the GLE Coupe. Both of them are those hideous fucking coupe SUV fastback things that are... Ever since BMW started the concept with the X6, it's kind of irked me to an extent, because you take all the worst aspects of a crossover SUV, you know, less off-road adaptability versus fuel economy, all that shit. And then you add this fastback roofline, which takes a huge cut to cargo space and rear seat headroom, and it's like, why the fuck do people buy these things? It's like form over function at its absolute zenith. I cannot stand coupe SUVs just in general. And I'm ashamed that Mercedes jumped on the bandwagon, as did Porsche in recent years. My god, if Cadillac ever makes an XT5 coupe, I'm actually gonna fucking... Es tut mir leid. I just had to cut myself off before I said something that would get me kicked off the internet and all that shit. But now moving on to my favorite cars from my least favorite brands. As it's been pretty well documented by now, I have a severe disdain for what Ford is doing right now, but there are still a bunch of classic models I do hold in high esteem. And out of all of them, probably my favorite is the 1957 to 1959 Fairlane Skyliner. Even though it wasn't the first retractable hardtop, it was the first one that gained some sort of mainstream appeal and kind of catapulted it from a one-off concept to a feasible body style. And out of the 3 model years it was produced, I'd have to say the 1957 is probably my favorite, because out of the 3 model years, I appreciate the 1957's more understated appearance the most. Secondly, we all know Mitsubishi's kind of been on everyone's shit list for several years now. And if I had to pick a favorite from Mitsubishi, I'd have to say the 3000 GT / FTO / GTO. Out of all of the legendary 90s JDM performance cars, it feels like the 3000 GT is left in the dust as far as recognition behind the Skyline and the Supra and all that. Which is kind of a shame, because the 3000 GT was a really innovative car with things such as adaptive aerodynamics and 4-wheel steering. Things that would become pretty commonplace in later years, actually. And because it is sort of neglected in the collector market beyond all the Skylines and Supras, they're actually going for pretty cheap right now. So if you want one, now's your chance. Now, the last one is gonna probably stir a bit of controversy when I say this, but I fucking hate Ferrari, okay? Not for their vehicles, though, but for their business practices. 'Cause These guys have engaged in the most seditious skullduggery in the last couple decades, ranging from their ridiculous ownership contracts all the way to their latest example of fuck-uppery, where they literally sued a fucking charity organization to get the name for a crossover they're making. I'm actually not making that up. They literally sued a fucking charity that benefits racing horses just so they can call their new crossover Purosang. Or however the fuck you're supposed to pronounce that. I don't know. But as far as much of just a complete asshole that Ferrari has been on the corporate stage, they do make pretty nice cars. And I'd have to say definitely my favorite is still the iconic F40. Because that thing pretty much laid the blueprint for what you would call a supercar in this day and age. It was the most powerful behemoth you could buy at the time. It's got that timeless design, no fucking driver aid bullshit. It's just you, a sick engine, and a lot of room. And for that, the F40 has cemented its legacy as a truly historical automobile. And I guess with that, like, I don't have anything else to add, but I'll get to the next one. Alright, so Handpark765 asks me, how was your day? Pretty wholesome question, and so far, it's honestly too early to say. It's like 9 in the morning so far, but it's been pretty good so far, and I hope yours is great too if you're watching this right now. This next one comes from Redstone KSA, who asks me, favorite motorsport? Honestly, I'd probably have to say, like, I try to stay away from the professional stuff, you know, like NASCAR, F1, NHRA. I like to see, like, amateur guys showcasing their builds and shootouts, you know, like, I don't know if it counts as NHRA, but I like to see just ordinary guys drag racing and just shooting it out to see who's got the better build, you know? And trust me, it's easy, it's fun, and just pull up next to Misaka one night and you'll find out, man. Alright, so this next one comes to me from the Texan Doge, who asks, what's your favorite pickup truck? Give me a second. This one. I mean, you can call me biased as much as you want, but just like Xerox, I'm spitting facts when I say that the 1982 to 1993 Chevy S10 is probably my favorite truck out there. And a close runner-up would be the 1993 to 2002 Dodge Ram for equally sentimental reasons. And if I throw sentiment completely out the window, I'd probably have to say the GMC Cyclone, because the Cyclone pretty much invented the performance truck segment as we know it, predating the Ford Lightning by 2 whole years. And wouldn't you know it, guess what the GMC Cyclone was based on? The GMC Sonoma, which in turn was based on the Chevy S10. So, GMT 325, best truck ever. You can't change my mind about that. Alright guys, last question of the day comes from 1970 Superbird, who asks, do you remember how we met? And of course I do, man. It's like, way back in 2017, by total happenstance, I stumbled across that pic of that Dubsta 6x6 in GTA 5. You know, G63 AMG, and I said, okay, I gotta get me one of those. And then from there, you know, we started playing GTA together, and it turned into one of our earliest and most powerful, long-lasting friendships to date. And honestly, I gotta thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying this long, and we've seen hell together, and we'll keep going, like, and oh my god, I don't even know what to say, honestly, right now. Like, I guess if there's anything to take away from this, it's like, you never know whose life you're gonna touch on the internet, you know? Because even one little comment can turn into a lifelong friendship. And honestly, if there's one life lesson I want you to take away from this video, please just let it be that. Because you never know whose life you're seriously gonna impact for better on the internet. And honestly, I just want to thank you for being here as long as you have, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So hey, stay metal, you guys. So hey, I guess that was our video for 666 watchers. And again, I want to thank each and every single one of you guys from the bottom of my heart for sticking around with me for this long on this ride. And I'm super excited for what's coming forward, you know, and I'm honored to have you guys with me for the ride. So, you know, I honestly wish I could have gotten more participation, but on such short notice there was only so much I could do, I guess. But again, like, you guys are all fucking amazing, and whether you asked a question or not, I just want to thank you for staying by my side this long. It means the fucking world to me, for real. Like, I'm touched, I'm captivated, and I'm motivated. Like, you guys are the reason I keep doing this kind of shit, you know? And I'm super ecstatic to show you what I've got planned in coming years, and I hope you're ready to. So, hey, till we meet again, hey, this has been your German boy. Auf Wiedersehen für jetzt. Auf Wiedersehen.